Hello people, R1 here. You know, I had mentioned, I think, in a previous video that I was going to have to get around to running some more arcade matches for Ground Forces Combat. They are entertaining and usually fairly fast-paced. So I decided I would jump into this one. It's a conquest map on Poland, which is a really good map. And the tank I'm going to start out with here, or tank destroyer to be more specific, is the Panzer IV 70A, which is a premium tank destroyer. It's kind of a rough-looking tank destroyer. It kind of looks like somebody put this together in their spare time out of bits and pieces they found laying around in their basement. And it doesn't have a wide variety of ammunition types available. However, what it does have available generally can get the job done. It's not fancy, but it's workmanlike, I guess is the best term for it. And Poland is an interesting map. It has some subtle terrain features that you can take advantage of if you put your mind to it. I'll get to that in just a little bit, but right now, let me just say that I intended to put my emphasis on teamwork this match. This is not an extremely powerful vehicle for its battle ranking, and I knew I was going to have to try and stick close to the other members of my team if I was going to be effective. And so, keeping that firmly in mind, the first thing I do is split off by myself on our northern flank. Right in the middle of a broad thoroughfare that makes me an easy target, a sitting duck. This was a rough week for Ranger 1. Kept being overly aggressive and making all the wrong moves at all the wrong times. But that's a story for another video. In this one, I make a basic mistake, and I pay the price right off the bat. So I decide, well, to heck with it. I'm going to go ahead and jump in my Tiger. Now, my Tiger's not got very many upgrades on it at this point. That's really kind of the whole reason why I've been playing arcade so much lately. Because I can earn upgrades on these tanks a bit faster in arcade. It seems to take me quite some time to make any significant progress playing them in realistic battles. So we'll do this for the time being, and I have made significant progress, but at this point in time I only have a few basic upgrades on this tank, so I'm a little concerned, but I realize that my strategy, flawed though it may have been, on guarding our northern flank. Oh, strafing run, great. At least he died and I got adamant out of it. Holding that northern flank probably wasn't a bad idea. I just didn't have the right tool for the job. So I'm going to go ahead and close in on that same thoroughfare that I got nailed in before. We've got people further into the town now to provide some support, and I've got a Tiger behind me. So I'm going to try my best to battle my way back into that same position. Now I see that Su-85 there sticking its nose out into the street, and I take a pot shot at it, but I figure my teammate in the Tiger behind me is more than well enough equipped to deal with that particular threat. And I see my first target. They're definitely trying to make a push into the town. Now, cover is very limited in this part of the town on the Poland map, but it does have one feature that you can take advantage of, even in a situation like this. These fence rows are sturdy wrought iron, which will stop a lot of shots, or at least slow them down significantly. And these huge concrete posts will absorb most incoming shells. You can use them as kind of a breakaway cover. Got to watch my flank over here to the left too. I'm going to put a shot into that fella and just remind him that it's not a good idea to get into a sniper battle with a Tiger tank. So I'm angling my tank to cover my vulnerable spots as best I can, using the cover of this fence row to my best advantage. Now, he's not utilizing his very well. I was still getting in good shots on him and his companions coming in from behind. There's a KV-85 there. I still have to deal with this fella, but I've got a concrete post between me and him also that I'm utilizing, and I'm able to shoot over it. And he got in a shot, but it's a glancing blow. I've got my armor angled to provide my best protection for any shots that manage to make it through the fence. Now I figure there will probably be a steady stream of tanks coming in from their spawn point. My team is doing well in town, and they've killed several of them, so there should be a fresh batch on their way very quickly. And there's some more in the distance. I'm going to move forward now. I've still got the fence that I can use to my advantage, and I also have these houses to work with, so we'll push forward, hopefully not exposing myself to fire from that group coming into town, and see if I can snap off a couple of quick, sneaky shots before they get out of my line of fire. And there's a fellow doing the same thing right there. Get a good shot into him and back off. I have terrain that I can use to my advantage, and it's really not to my advantage to just sit there and trade shots with him. Now the Tiger is not the most nimble tank, so sometimes it gets a little tricky amongst these buildings to get it pointed in the right direction. But we're going to stick our nose around this corner and see what's down this street. Again, I'm going to keep these fence rows handy just in case I need them. And there's the enemy group moving into town. IS-1. Take a good shot and give one in return. And lined up. That seems to have taken the wind out of his sails a little bit. He puts another one into me, but at that range, I can take it. KV-85 is blown up right behind him by one of my teammates. And my opponent's responses seem to be slowing down quite a bit. I think I've hurt him fairly badly. Glance a shot there and back up behind the fence. But he's not returning fire. He should at least be able to get a partial shot in at me, but his turret's not moving. I glance off his lower glacis. That was unfortunate. But I don't think he's able to return fire right now, so I poke my nose out and decide to make sure he can't return fire. I put one right into his cannon, and then we'll look for a weak spot right about there and follow up. And up he goes. Now between all of us, we seem to have taken the teeth out of that advance from the enemy's base. So I'm going to reassess the situation. No one's immediately apparent, but they have managed to slip somebody through and start capturing the central capture point. I decide I'm going to go ahead and start falling back toward my teammates before I get completely isolated here. I'm leaving the protective cover of my fences behind, but at this point I think I'll be better served moving a little closer into town. And remember what I said about the Tiger not being the most nimble tank? Well, there you go. I kind of wonder when we get destructible buildings if impacting a building like that's going to make it fall down on you. That'd be interesting. And here we go. Plenty of targets further in. I put a fairly good shot into that Panther up there. And then back off. Angle my armor again. I'm kind of out in the middle of nowhere right here. He can't decide who to shoot at. Puts one into me, but I managed to take him out before he can do too much more harm. More importantly, our base now seems to be back firmly under our control. When it comes to fighting in streets like this, the tanks that have their turrets set well forward on the hull have a distinct advantage in an in-town situation like this where you have to poke your nose around corners. Otherwise, you have to expose a lot more of your tank to enemy fire. And as I look at the heavy tanks for Germany that are coming out in the next patch, I think that's going to become important. Well, they finally took me out, but we have this match fairly well in hand. And really, that's what I deserve. I got indecisive there at the end, and I sat in the middle of a broad thoroughfare with no cover whatsoever. Kinda serves me right. Well, I'll go ahead and jump into another tank destroyer here and head for the battle, but at this point, it's all over. It looks like every single member of our team is clustered securely around the capture point, and I don't think there's any way that the enemy team is going to have a hope of breaking through. So, when you're on the Poland map next time, and the battle moves inside the town, keep these two things in mind. If you're actually in the city streets, using those fence rows to your advantage can be critical. They're destructible cover, but they can be effective nonetheless. And often your enemy overlooks the fact that they can use them to their advantage as well. Just keep in mind that some tanks don't have the horsepower to push through those fences easily, so don't get yourself trapped. And try to avoid, as much as possible, sitting in the middle of the city streets. Use the corners of the buildings to your best advantage, especially if you happen to be in a vehicle that is blessed with a lot of front armor and a turret that sits well forward on the hull of the tank. And as you look at the slew of videos that are hitting the web now that are showing off the features and vehicles in the next patch, if you like to play Germany, take a close look at the Tiger Porsche with its extra heavy frontal armor and its forward-sitting turret. Granted, it's a beast to try and maneuver in the town, but if you don't rely on mobility but rely on that armor and the placement of the turret, I think it's going to do well. Time will tell. Until I see you again, good hunting.